Thank you everyone for joining today. We are going to be talking about looking toward the high-speed future, and we're going to be talking about building edge infrastructure and enhancing business opportunities. So in this session, we're going to discuss building a business case that's going to create short and long-term ROI while achieving interoperability, bringing the right partnerships that will enhance business outcomes, and then overcoming stakeholder complexity, such as IT versus OT, and bridging that gap internally and externally. And I've got some amazing panelists with me today. I'm super excited that they're joining me. I've got William Corey, who is a system design and integration specialist for the Boeing Company. Welcome, William.
Glad to be here.
I've got Shrankhala Jain, who is a data scientist for the Ford Motor Company. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I've got Brent Schroeder, who is the CTO of ASUS. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining me. And I'm going to start with William. I'm going to ask you all the same first question. Talk to me about why, from a business perspective, it's really important to have an edge strategy, William.
So yeah, it's a great question. So I think it all boils down to business needs. It's important to have a strategy, service model up front, since that will save a lot of time and effort and will allow the service to be offered to the business as soon as they need it, rather than having to try and figure it out at the last minute. So it seems like that's the most efficient way to go about it.
Thank you. Good answer. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, it's, the edge is all about business perspective. Otherwise, the edge really doesn't have a point in existing. Edge strategy starts with the business driver, whether it's customer experience, safety, operational efficiency, etc. And defining these objectives up front is the critical first element of that strategy. But just having the business objectives alone doesn't make it successful. And that's why it's important to develop the holistic strategy up front. There are numerous factors covering architecture, security, data management that go into an edge strategy to ensure the overall success and therefore the business success. So my recommendation is absolutely to start with the strategy where these are all thought out in advance.
Thank you. Great, solid answer. Shrankhala?
Yeah, I agree to most of what's being said, and I would like to add some things. Like, as we know, it's really important for the business to catch up to the innovation wave with current increase in IoT devices and in various use cases like smart manufacturing, augmented and virtual reality, and online gaming. It's really required for any business to think along how they want to utilize the data generated by these devices and implement a proper model that will give them the proper insights. And the edge computing system is pretty vast and rapidly evolving. So we need a structure where we can define the problem and get the solution for it. So for any industry who is working with edge solutions, they need to have a strategized efficiencies and the operational requirements to execute the solution for each respective projects they are working on. And it also gives them the competitive advantage over other players in the market with having the real-time insights generated from the data. So, but the core or the first starting point will be to strategize the business needs and then deliver the solutions for it.
Thank you. Great answer. And, you made a point. It's a vast sort of audience that we're dealing with in terms of the number of types of companies, the regulations, security, and it's going to vary within each industry. So if you're looking through that lens, William, why does that strategy take even on more meaning than it would?
Yeah, so I think when an edge strategy is properly executed, it should be in line with the enterprise directives, such as data center standards, best practices. Security is a major concern at the edge, especially with smaller edge and IoT devices that are more mobile than standard rack infrastructure, which means more potential attack vectors to be aware of. Having that strategy is, as an organization, means that you see the value in providing that high performance computing closer to the end user, whether it be in a remote office, a factory, a vehicle, or in our case, even in an airplane in some cases. And being an international company, regulatory compliance is very important to us, and it's a major consideration when doing our deployments all over the world.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Brent, how are you seeing the edge strategy aligning with other components like regulatory security? What are you seeing happen?
Yeah, I think, as we noted a little bit in the business perspective aspect, things outside the business are as critical to consider, in an edge implementation, given many deployments will be outside the confines of a traditional data center. And if we think about a data center or even in the cloud, where you may take a more holistic approach to security, there's that confines of the isolation away from the world. In an edge scenario, everything's out in the wild, or very often out in the wild. And that strategy must comprehend those requirements, the regulatory, security, resiliency, and be interlocked across all the stakeholders, before beginning an implementation, really to try to avoid surprises. And I think it really takes more planning and testing of those, and failure to do so, not only puts the project at risk, but also puts larger business at risk as well.
Great answer. Thank you. Shrankhala, you work for Ford, and Ford's using Edge for preventive maintenance. They're delivering new insights for customers. So as a data scientist for Ford, tell us how gathering data from the Edge provides an economic value to the business.
Yeah, that's true. Ford is utilizing a lot of edge analytics and edge computing services to use the data that's generated by their IoT devices. And really, if to put in a sentence, edge computing is revolutionizing the way the industries work, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's gaming, or whether it's consumer oriented industries. So currently, it's all come under, when we talk about manufacturing industries, it comes under the industrial IoT. That's industrial Internet of Things, where we have sensors connected to each individual machine, and they are communicating within themselves to provide us the data generated for every instance that's working. So it's really important for any industry to utilize the data that's in real time, and then gain some insights from it. So edge computing, or I would say the data that's coming from the edge devices, is nothing but the edge. It is giving any industry edge intelligence or computational intelligence to derive the information from the data right in the moment when it is generated. For some specific use cases, it is really critical for industries to rely on the real-time analytics engines. For example, when we talk about manufacturing industry, so if any failure, if any machine failure is there, so you want to have the immediate cutoff or immediate response in order to avoid any big cost associated to any failure. So that's one of the examples where edge data can be really helpful, and the edge engine, edge devices that can help get the insights in real time. And I would like to know some of the advantages that that it is applicable to any industry. So one is the speed, the execution speed, or the analyzing speed. As edge computing does not require completely sending data to the cloud and then wait for the analysis results and then get back to the component. So the latency is very less, and it's really important in some applications where immediate response is needed. And the second is the response time. As you have the analysis done in nanoseconds, then you can implement it right away. And the third will be the most important factor point is the security. As we talk about sending data to the cloud and then getting it back with the results and all. So in some companies, there is data governance required, or there can be a cyber attack that can happen during the transferring of the data from your factory or your industry with the cloud. So you can avoid it by having it at local and get the insights, and then leave the rest data to go into the cloud, which doesn't require any security or minimal security causes. And the last one I would say is the cost saving. As I talked about security and the bandwidth that's needed to transfer that data to cloud. So if you do most of the analytics at the edge or at the device, then it will save industry lots of money in dollars. So these are the top advantages that will help any industry, and that is helping actually most of the industries to go for edge services and edge computing solutions to apply in their fields.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. William, you know, Shrankhala gave us her perspective from the automotive industry, and she makes a great point that it's going to be in all industries where this is applicable. One of the things she cited was cost savings. So one of the ways that we're seeing people save money utilizing the edge is storage. They're utilizing storage at the edge instead of taking everything and moving it back to the cloud. Can you speak to that at all, or can you speak to any other savings that you've seen happen as a result of using edge technology?
Absolutely. Yeah, so cost is especially important, but we ultimately determine the direction based on a number of factors. You have to weigh the difference between functionality, cost, performance when deciding on that edge versus cloud storage strategy. So we consider many factors such as data retention, archival, and then performance requirements as well, and of course latency requirements. You know, we have a lot of low latency workloads that require that edge computing, you know, in our factories and some of our remote offices. So when working at the edge, it's important to remain in lockstep with the enterprise hosting standards, at least within our company. And we also consider, you know, the use of private networks, which are often only available within our remote locations, which makes it difficult to use a gateway to the cloud. So, you know, edge to cloud data streaming for analytics is a critical area, very beneficial to most companies, and we're utilizing that pretty heavily at Boeing. We mostly consider, you know, edge storage for real-time needs, and then cloud for scalability. So we use, you know, edge and IoT for machine learning and analytics at the edge, and we've been able to make some pretty big business decisions based off of that data.
That's a good example, thank you. And I think we're just going to see that as a growing example. Brent, let me ask you, because this is something that comes up. Does edge replace the cloud? Does it augment the cloud? Talk to me about the integration.
Yeah, I think, and there's actually already been a couple of great examples of it, but I think this scenario is really the ultimate in complementary functionality. Edge and cloud absolutely augment each other. If you look at the totality of the solution for most edge scenarios, there's a spectrum of functionality. Some best federated close to the point of interaction, and some less locality sensitive that can best be done in a consolidated environment, or where I've got an opportunity to aggregate. So those devices and functions at the edge become responsible for the individual time-sensitive interactions, whether this is in an autonomous vehicle, self-service retail point of presence, or medical solutions monitoring a person's vitals. That's really the role, and the cloud can't play that role most often because of the time sensitivity of the responsiveness. The cloud, on the other hand, is all about aggregation and business optimization. So using the subset of data gathered at the edge, I can use the cloud to refine the models used in the interaction. I can run larger business regressions to study trends and make those macro business decisions. Or I can do real-time supply chain management. So if you look at these scenarios and the role that each plays, you know, you can see how, you know, you really, the end-to-end solution is about both coming together.
Right, they're going to be partners. So that's,
Yep.
Thank you for making that nice and simple and easy to understand. Shrankhala, let me move to you for a second here. So you talked a little bit to us about latency and some of the other reasons why, data is collected at the edge. How are edge analytics and the data sets that they provide to companies offering competitive advantage to that organization?
Sure. It's actually a very or the most important factor in adopting to edge devices, because when you collect the data from edge devices, you analyze it and you do it where the environment, where the actual hardware is there, or it's near to the hardware. So it reduces the latency, which in turn increases the speed response, and it helps you give the answers in real-time predictions. And also edge at the device or the sensor, or the data generated by sensor. Basically, it gives the computational intelligence at the device level, so that you can you can gather the data that is generated by the device itself, and then you can utilize it right away and give intelligence analytics driven onto the device, and then give the proper real-time information, like which will relate to maybe asset failure or any maintenance requirement. So it kind of gives an edge to any business if they can have a faster response to the problems they face usually. So it's basically helping industries to do their work in a better way with minimum cost associated to it, and with better and faster response. So that's where if as a company, if you have edge, if you have adopted to edge technology, and some company doing the same work but not, so you can see the efficiency and the efficiency and some other factors, like which will make them to shift to that innovating industry is all about innovation. So the more you adapt to latest trends and everything, it will give you more boost in your overall advantage as a company. And I would like to take one example here. For example, if you work in a manufacturing industry, so for manufacturing, quality and control and the safety are the three most important things that they want to regulate at a proper level. And edge is the solution to it, with proper real-time information and analytics driven, because of the capability and the performance that can be generated by the edge devices. So I believe any industry which have these working, they will have better ROI, and it will help them sustain for longer in such in these data-driven times.
So edge gives you an edge.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Okay. Okay, great. So Brent, I'm the person at my company that's now being tasked with building this edge business case for the executives. What's the best way to communicate how the edge and the cloud are going to work together? Because they've already got the idea of cloud in their head, right? How are they going to work together? And how am I going to explain that in layman's terms to the executives?
This was a great question. It required me to think about this for a while, because we often live in our little technology bubble. And where I came to is really think about breaking it down into interaction and aggregation. The devices and functions that are being placed at the edge, the point of interaction, really optimize the time to respond in that interaction. Gathering the data and responding in application or business critical time, where there's not again, the cloud really doesn't play in that space or doesn't fit that model. So the edge is about that interaction. And the cloud plays the more holistic role on the end-to-end solution, for example, being utilized to aggregate relevant subsets of data from the edge for analysis to assist in larger business decisions, such as that supply chain optimization I was talking about earlier. So that was kind of my take on how do I get it just to a couple of simple concepts of what's the role of each, why is the role of those optimized to the characteristics of each environment.
That was perfect. I'm going to roll you out to my next executive meeting. That was so nicely done. So William, I'm going to move to you for a second because the edge feels like it's not homogeneous, at least to me. And it feels like there's components and piece parts, and it's more of an ecosystem. What would you say to that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it definitely is an ecosystem. I would say some of the components that you should definitely focus on when you're deploying an edge environment or coming up with a new strategy would be making sure that you have the right support staff. So you need good sysadmins, you need network engineers, you need security engineers. You need to make sure you have, your hardware architectural requirements and designs in place. Make sure everything's tested, and then, consider your software standards and also compliance standards, depending on, where your main deployments are. That's definitely something to look into.
Okay, thank you for that. Brent, I'm going to go to you. So the edge ecosystem's growing, right? It seems like it's growing daily. Outside of the hyperscale cloud providers, are we going to start to see vertical specificity within the edge? Are we already seeing it?
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing both specializations emerge. And the capability providers are delivering the products and services that apply broadly across numerous industries and use cases, really to simplify and suit customers to deploy and operate at the edge. But I see a growing space there with the vertical specific suppliers, within every industry that brings tremendous vertical subject matter expertise to these problems, such as say GE Healthcare in the medical industry, or Electrobit as an example in the automotive industry, where they've been in the industry a long time, they understand it, and now are able to take these new technologies and new capabilities and enable new use cases, either for themselves or for others in the industry to take advantage of and build upon even further.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought we were starting to see some of that, but Shrankhala, so William and Brent have said, it's an ecosystem and there's partners. How do you ensure that you've got the right partner at the table to maybe help you with real-time analytics?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. As William and Brent both suggested, that it's a developing ecosystem right now where we have vertical silos and everything going on, where we need multiple partners to execute the solution that we want for any problem. So like in real-time edge analytics, if we talk about, we will require an open ecosystem with people where we can, because it's, as we are saying, the data is generated at the edge, but we are using some of them to utilize or generate insights at the hardware level, or maybe near to the hardware, but rest of the data should go to the cloud, because you cannot just have everything in the edge analytics server. So you need that complete infrastructure to have that kind of data communication between multiple stakeholders that are going to control the data. So for any industry to have that ecosystem, they require some of the key holders. For example, like infrastructure. For setting the infrastructure, they need network providers to ensure that the network connectivity and everything between the devices is there. For example, Cisco does that. And we also need the application providers where they can provide us the AI enabled or any artificial intelligence or machine learning kind of algorithms that can run on your IoT devices that can generate the insights. So you need those as well. And apart from that, you need devices, the IoT devices that we talk about, the hardware itself. So you need some providers that does that kind of work and creates sufficient compute capacity and storage capacity that can handle the amount of data that will be generated from your devices. And other than that, we surely require the industry solution providers, as this is a very new concept. Not most of the people have gone through the process. So you need some expertise in the area that can help you out with setting up the complete ecosystem and to work with the problem that you have. Currently, if we see in the market, we have some of the cloud solution providers that does help you out with the edge solution delivery. For example, Microsoft has its own suite, and then we have Amazon, we have IBM, we have Dell. These all big companies are helping other industries to roll out IoT developments in their different section or different domain of the organization. For example, for manufacturing, for autonomous industry, we talk about. So we work with a number of video capturing or video enabled AI we talk about for autonomous car. That's also a very important, or the heart of autonomous car, where you want to generate data right away with less latency so that you cannot keep any lives at danger. So in a nutshell, we require multiple multiple people or multiple vendors to help you out setting up edge driven solution.
Thank you for that. And William, you know, Shrankhala brought up a good point. Who are the stakeholders, right? So can you tell us simply the difference between IT and OT? Who's responsible for each? And maybe how are these two silos sort of getting together as we talk about edge?
Yeah, that's a great discussion. So IT and OT have some distinct differences, but they're becoming increasingly intertwined as the technology progresses. And traditionally, manual data gathering would occur for legacy machinery and sensors in our case on the factory floor. And with the new technology in the OT space, we're able to extract that data from these devices, such as legacy PLCs, using devices as small as, say, a Raspberry Pi, ranging up to server-grade hardware. So the organizational structure can get tricky since to properly integrate IT and OT people who have diverse skill sets in factory work, equipment engineering, and then also that general IT sysadmin knowledge as well.
Thank you. Yeah, they are different groups and they're coming together. We've got about 4 minutes left, and I want to get each of your final thoughts. I'd like you to each take a minute. I'm going to start with Brent, and tell me what are a couple things you're going to see in the space as the year progresses.
Well, certainly. I think the two biggest trends I see on the evolution. First is I think we're going to see more and more industry collaboration, providing open source solutions, from the end-to-end requirements of an edge solution, and moving away from the completely enclosed proprietary single vendor solutions. I think this will provide companies that are implementing it more portability, better integration between components. We talked about earlier in the discussion the diversity of ecosystems and components, and the industry needs to collaborate to bring those together so that it's straightforward and simple for companies to do that level of integration versus spending a lot of time having to wire them together, being the first in their industry to put them together. So I think that's the first one. The second is with the significant growth of software companies providing this verticalized specialization in edge toolkits, across all industries. I think this is going to open up a lot of opportunities for many more companies that may not have historically had the resources, to build from the ground up an edge solution. We hear in the industry fairly frequently, there's a lot of examples, but many of the smaller mid-sized companies may struggle with an implementation just due to the complexity and the number of moving parts in the solution. And I think this verticalized ISVs are going to really go a long way in providing platforms and ecosystems for the mid-sized company to grasp onto and build solutions that fit their business as well. So they can be competitive. It's kind of like, cloud democratized, the big data center. I think edge is going to democratize, the scenario of kind of real-time feedback and customer interaction.
That's a great answer. Thank you. William, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say, and this has been ongoing for years, of course, but more integrated public-private cloud integration and more security enhancements that will sway, companies that can go more that hybrid public cloud model associated with their edge computing stacks. And that, that's especially prevalent for Boeing because, as public cloud took off, we got defense companies that host a lot of government data where we can't just automatically start moving data to the cloud. So we've seen the progression of that security, over time, and that integrates in with our edge strategy, what we do with our data. So I think that's just going to keep getting better, and there's going to be more companies that are, more confident in, being able to partner with a lot of these newer companies as the security gets better as well.
Thank you. Great answer. And Shrankhala, 1 minute left. Take us home.
Sure. I'll keep it to application phase. Like if we see in an year or two, what will change if we adopt to edge analytics. So I see that with more advancement in the hardware or the computing capacity, we can see number of applications where we can see the real-time driven solutions based on the insights generated by those devices. For example, in autonomous car, we might have the full autonomous car maybe in a year or two if we can conquer that video streaming and video analytics capability with the help of edge computing itself. And apart from that, we can also see in healthcare industry, and I think that's very important one where we see like robots assisting the doctors to do any kind of surgeries. So if you have that computing capacity and you can make better decisions by looking at the data right away without any latency, then that will be the achievement of edge computing in industries. Like two applications that I feel that will transform in a coming year.
Man, does this mean I'm maybe getting a personal assistant sometime soon? That'd be great. Thank you all. This was a wonderful panel. Thank you for your thoughts and insights, and we've enjoyed being with you today.
Thank you guys.
Same here.